I asked Brian Callahan about the 2021 decision on Chase and Sewell, and he talked about how he prefers the elite premium touchdown scorers to the elite premium non-touchdown scorers. Are Neighbors and Odunze in the elite, like Jamar Chase type prospect class?
I think they are two of the three in this draft that have the best chance to be there. The other one, of course, is Ohio State's Marvin Harrison Jr., because all three of those guys have shown repeatedly that against double coverage as their number one receiver for their team, they're able to get down the field and finish plays. They've all shown that they can run the underneath routes, and they're outstanding after the catch at the college level. If the choice is between drafting a fast receiver to take the top off the defense, which is what this team needs, they do not have a speed receiver on this team that can finish. They just don't. Rather than drafting that guy, there's a couple of fast guys available in free agency that have shown that they can do it in the NFL already. And that's one of the reasons that if you've got two guys that are graded similarly at that number 7 spot, if they stay, and one's a left tackle and one's a wide receiver, I'm going with the tackle in the draft and the receiver in free agency.
Trevor Maddich talking about, hey, I think I can get this in free agency. I think I can get that wide receiver. Now, let me tell you what's not going to happen, or at least it's not going to be okay on this program if it happens. If the Titans decide that they're going to roll it back with Treylon Burks as the number 2 wide receiver, I mean, we're not having that conversation. That is not okay. Now, I found 3 guys that I think, kind of fit the bill of what the Titans would be looking for in free agency: Gabe Davis, Calvin Ridley, and Hollywood Brown. And I have my concerns on all of them. Ridley, it's a character concern, and he had 3 drops on deep passes last year. Davis, it's an injury thing, and he does kind of drop the ball a lot, though he did not on deep passes. And Hollywood Brown, he doesn't really make any contested catches and hasn't really exploded the way that we thought he would in the NFL. But at least get one of those guys over Burks, who, hate to say it, but has just not cut the mustard yet. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nate has been waiting patiently and is up next. What's up, Nate?
Yes, sir. Man, this is a great topic for slow-mo February sports, isn't it?
Well, I don't think it's a slow-mo February sports. We got the Combine next week. The Predators are in a playoff, right, Jason, at the deadline. And so if you want to start treating like this is July, that's your problem, but not for me.
Hey, you have me sold on the interview with Callahan. Great discussion. I'm a Seahawk fan, but I love the topic.
Nate, get to it, please.
How you build it. All right. If you get a tackle, you've got to have receivers, maybe not in the draft, that can get off of press coverage. If you can't get open, you're not throwing to nobody, and you can't only run the ball. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so here's what I'll say. First of all, I go back to, if you can't get off press coverage, you can't play in the NFL. Like, that's just – Ian, you remember that Ravens game when I said that, yeah, A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, they're not getting off the press against Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters. And the old man was not happy about that. Mm-hmm. Said, if you can't get off the press, you can't play in the NFL. And so I'll say the same thing. If you can't get off the press, you can't play the NFL. Here's the deal about free agency. I look at Malik Neighbors, and to a lesser extent, but not a lot lesser, but to a lesser extent, Rome Odunze. And I'm like, and I am fascinated to see if these guys will run at the Combine, and I am fascinated to see what they will run at the Combine, if they run. But the important thing about those guys are that I view them as the potential superstar receivers. You know what I'm talking about. Randy Moss, superstar receiver. Like, I would not say that Brandon Ayuk is a superstar receiver. He's a number 1, and he's really good. But I wouldn't call him a superstar. Justin Jefferson, he's a superstar. Jamar Chase, he's a superstar. That's what I'm talking about here. The superstar wide receiver. And I think there's a chance that Neighbors or Odunze is going to be that, right? So the options, I am now officially a Pro Football Focus premium member. And make of these stats what you will. But I went through free agent wide receivers that go deep and catch the ball and went deep on, like, I want to say it was 40% of their targets or something like that. You know, the deep threats or whatever the stats were. And I came up with 3. Plus 20 yards. Gabe Davis in Buffalo had 25 targets of plus 20 yards, 11 receptions, no drops, and he caught 50% of those contested catches. So of the balls down the field, 50% of them he caught, and he didn't drop one. Now, he's a little bit of an injury concern because he sprained the PCL, and he missed the 2 playoff games for Buffalo, but he's one of them. Number 2, Calvin Ridley at Jacksonville, 32 targets on deep balls, so more targets than Davis, 13 catches, 3 drops, and he was only 30% on those contested catches down the field. So Davis is better on contested catches down the field than Ridley is, and Ridley drops the ball, but Ridley also has character concerns, right? And then Hollywood Brown, 21 targets of plus 20 yards, 6 catches, 1 drop, and he did not make a single contested catch, and he only played in 14 games last year, and he played 12 games the year before that. The reason I bring this up is because when it comes to filling out the weapons around Will Levis, does Gabe Davis, Hollywood Brown, or Calvin Ridley, does that equate to Randy Moss? Because that's what I'm talking about when it comes to what is Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze. Are they Randy Moss? Are they Justin Jefferson? Or are they just going to be good? I mean, I'm going to say this. When I saw Jerry Jeudy in college at Alabama, I thought that guy was going to come into the NFL and be a superstar. I thought he was going to be the next Amari Cooper. I thought he was going to be the next Julio Jones. I thought he was going to be the next great Alabama wide receiver. Like, that's just, that's what, and he hasn't been that. And so, again, you know, that's what kind of makes me a little nervous here. And then the deep threat guys. And how about this? Darnell Mooney at Chicago? He had 3 catches of plus 20 yards last year. He had 13 targets, 1 drop, and did not make a single contested catch. Like, his numbers were just not very good as far as running the deep ball. And that's what you need. You need the deep ball. You've got a quarterback who's got a bazooka. DeAndre is great at what DeAndre does, but DeAndre's not the deep ball guy. You need the deep ball guy. And Burks can't be the deep ball guy because Burks can't stay healthy and Burks can't catch. So that's what you got to get. One texter says if you move Skoronski to left tackle and get a left guard in free agency, then that kills the argument on needing more young players on the team. How? I don't understand that. I don't understand the idea that moving Skoronski to left tackle and signing a left guard means that the Titans don't need more young players. I mean, the Titans need young players on this team. Now, if you're saying, well, if you need more young players, then you take Joe Alt, and then you've got another. Well, I mean, Malik Neighbors is still a young player. Like, if you don't trade that pick, then you're going to end up with the same amount of young players because it's only 1 pick, which means 1 player. So I don't understand, Texter. I don't understand what you're trying to say because it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. One texter says Randy Mueller. We like Randy Mueller. He's in the Athletic, or he's at the Athletic. He writes at the Athletic. Former general manager, was with the Dolphins when Nick Saban was the coach there. Said on the Hot Read podcast, insight from Randy Mueller. Did anyone follow Rand over from San Francisco? A number of coaches have followed Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan replaced quality names already on staff. People followed Mueller when he took over for the Saints, but did relationship Rand hire anybody he worked with in San Francisco? Well, he did hire Anthony Robinson, who he worked with in Atlanta. So I'm not going to throw Rand under the bus for that. And with San Francisco, I mean, here's the thing, right? If Rand leaves and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah leaves and Adam Peters leaves and all these guys leave, then everybody else below Rand that he would want to bring over here just gets bumped up there. So if I'm going to get bumped up there, why would I leave to go with Rand to come here? So I don't have a problem. I do not have a problem with Rand's, inner circle of assistant GMs and whatever the hell you want to call Chad Brinker, if he's now Rand's boss, or Rand reports to him, or he reports to Rand, or they both report to Amy, or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? But I don't have a problem with Rand's circle of trust because Rand built it. And if the circle of trust helps Rand build this team back, then everything's going to be good. And if not, Rand's going to get fired. And it's one or the other, and I'm fine with, it's going to play out one way or another. Texter says the thing about thinking moving Skoronski to left tackle is it potentially creates another hole. We do not know how good of a left tackle he can be at this point if he's bad and the Titans still don't have a left tackle. Here's the thing, Sean. If you move Skoronski to left tackle, you're basically saying, as I think Rand Carthon, or at least the Titans, are trying to get people to believe with Rand Carthon, you're saying last year didn't count. You're saying, hey, we saw enough of you in college at left tackle. We're going to draft you 11th and play at left tackle. But Skoronski might be a bust at left guard, too. I mean, that's not. Come on now. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. By the way, one texter says, the old man never liked the way you are so rude to the callers either. The callers are the listeners, and you should treat them with more respect. Ian, I don't think Floyd ever had a problem with how we treated the callers.
Not that I can think of anything particular that he said.
Yeah, so shut the hell up, texter. 615-737-1025. We've got Max Hers versus Joe Rexrode versus Sean Henry from this morning. And I think it's a fascinating topic. And, of course, we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Brennan ties it up in the corner. Predators win. Predators 5, Golden Knights 3. And we're 2-0 to start the road trip with a big win in fabulous Las Vegas.
Max, in this long career in play-by-play, don't ever say "we" again. I beg of you, okay? I beg of you to not do this.
And why is that?
You did not do anything. You called the game, which is great. It's an important part of the process. You did nothing. You did not take a shift. You did not coach the team. You did not pick the players. You did not do the equipment. What else? Who else could say "we"? Who's allowed to say "we"?
You don't own the team?
Okay, there you go. You don't own the team.
Let's welcome in Sean Henry of the Nashville Predators.
Oh,
Sean Henry, your thoughts on Rex
Max
Road
Hers
blasting Max Hers?
Hey, Joe, are you on your porch yelling at the grass and the clouds? You're a professional writer. You should know what a pronoun is. Max is we. Come on, man. The greatest announcers ever recognize when they're not calling national games, they work for the team. It is we.
Okay. The big argument this morning, which I found out about, because somebody tweeted me that they wanted more Sean Henry versus Joe Rexrode in the morning, and Sean Henry replied and was like, nah, that's Jared versus Joe, which, by the way, thank you for the plug, because it'll be 5 o'clock today. We'll have Jared versus Joe. So Max says we when he does the Predators broadcast, right? Like, and the Predators win, and we're off to 2-0 or whatever it may be. And Joe has clearly an issue with that. Now, let me just state this for the record, as far as Max is concerned. If the team president is picking up the phone, or I guess he's now the team CEO, Michelle Kennedy's president, but if the team CEO, if the guy at the top of the food chain is picking up the phone and is calling in to defend you, I'd probably say it's probably a good idea for you to keep doing what you're doing. Like, if they're publicly saying we like it that Max does this, then Max, you just go ahead, keep on doing it. Just a word of advice there. But as far as Max saying we on the air, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I really don't. See, the difference is I do think Max is on the team. He's on the team. Just like the equipment guys are on the team, just like the doctors and trainers are on the team, just like everybody else is on the team. Sean Henry didn't take a shift last night. He's on the team. If the Predators win the Stanley Cup, Max gets a ring. I don't get a ring if the Predators win the Stanley Cup. And I shouldn't get a ring if the Predators win the Stanley Cup. That's just how it is. But Max is on the team. Now, that doesn't mean that every broadcaster has to say we. But I do not have a problem with a home broadcaster saying we on the air at all. And of all the things for Joe to get mad about that, like, come on now. I mean, Hawk Harrelson is one of my favorite broadcasters of all time. I have never given a rat's ass about the Chicago White Sox, not once in my life. And I used to watch the White Sox when they were on WGN all the time because I loved Hawk Harrelson. I loved how when a White Sox player would hit a home run, he'd be like, 2-2 pitch to Johnson. That ball hit deep to left field. Back to the wall. He looks up. You can put it on the board. Yes! A 3-run homer for Big Paulie Paul Konerko. And the White Sox lead. It's 4-3. Like, I love that. I don't even care about the White Sox. Strike somebody out. He gone. I mean, I loved it. He called the White Sox the good guys. I loved it. I don't have a problem with that. See, what I like, and I'm not saying this won't fly in today's day and age, but what I like, I grew up on the Atlanta Braves and I grew up on Skip Carey. Now, if you're under the age of 25, you probably don't even know who Skip Carey is. But if you listen to Skip Carey, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Chase knows exactly what I'm talking about right now. Ian, I know you probably didn't care about the Braves at all, but I think you know what I'm talking about right now. So the thing about Skip Carey was he would say we all the time when talking about the Braves. But, I mean, he told it like it was now. If the Braves didn't play well, he said the Braves didn't play well. And I think that's the way it should be. It's not, again, nowadays everything is, and it doesn't matter if it's the Predators or the Milwaukee Bucks or the Sounds or and again, I mean, I'm not like critically listening to Jeff. I'm just saying that like the era that we live in now of pro broadcasts, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that was a bad call by that referee. Actually it wasn't. It's like Dave McGinnis and Mike Keith sit there with Rand Carthon. It's a great thing you didn't go to that Senior Bowl, that kind of stuff. And I love them. They do a great job. But I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with it. Now, here's my favorite part of this argument. My favorite part of this argument is that Sean and Joe, as they were exchanging the back and forth, Sean comes up with legendary broadcasters that back in the day used to say we.
Hold on. The greatest announcers of all time say we? Who?
When they worked for Vin Scully would say we for the Dodgers. He would not say we when he was calling the World Series independently.
I need audio of this. I don't believe you.
Okay, so here's Joe up on his high horse, and he's saying there's no way Vin Scully said we. So I did a Google search for Vin Scully, and as you can imagine, there were about a gazillion different cuts. But a lot of stuff was about like his death, and a lot of stuff was, the Kirk Gibson home run, which was a national broadcast. And I found this cut from 2016, towards the end there for old Vin. And I think he does say we in almost the exact same way Max said we, which was a quick, and we're off to a 2-0 start. This was Vin Scully in 2016.
0-1 to Charlie. Swung on a high fly ball to deep left field. The Dodger bench empties. Would you believe a home run? And the Dodgers have clinched the division and will celebrate on schedule. I think that's we. So I think, and again, there is nothing that I enjoy more than Joe Rexrode losing a debate than by easily just proving Joe wrong. Like when he said, Ryan Tannehill didn't throw a lot of interceptions in training camp that one year. And while I was doing the interview with Robbie and Joe, I pulled up the article that said Ryan Tannehill's interceptions at training camp are alarming. And it is so much fun to do that to Joe. And I got to say, it took me about 5 minutes to find that one cut of, and will celebrate accordingly, or whatever the hell it was Vince Scully just said. So I don't have a problem with Max saying we. And I think if the team president is encouraging Max to say we, then guess what, Max? Keep saying it. Because I can promise you they ain't going to fire you for that if they're the ones that want you to do it. So good on you, Max. 2, I think Max does a great job of calling the games when he's in for Pete. And then 3, I do not care. I think us and we is fine. I do not think us and we is fine in my position. But let me say this. Floyd used to say us and we all the time about the Titans and the Predators. And at first, it did bother me a lot because we didn't work for the team. But I got over it. And I really got over it, too. Like, he's in the Titans Hall of Fame now, and so he's forever a Titan. On SportsCenter, for instance, if a graphic of him ever comes up, they'll have a Titans logo behind him because he's in the Titans Hall of Fame. If you're not in a Hall of Fame, they just put an NFL logo behind you. So if Derek, for instance, were to be on a graphic on SportsCenter, it would just be an NFL logo. If you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, then they put the Pro Football Hall of Fame logo behind you. So Jerry Rice doesn't have a 49er logo behind him, but he just has a Pro Football Hall of Fame logo. So Floyd is a Titan. So, I mean, I didn't love it, but in this position, it's different than Max's position because Max is with the team. Max travels with the team. Max stays with the team. Max eats with the team. Max does everything with the team. So I don't have a problem with it. Just Skip Carey is a terrible example because he's so incredibly bad. Oh, come on now. Skip Carey is an all-timer. The fact that you would even say that, I mean, it's just awful. Saying we? So a lot of people are saying that in the Vin Scully cut that he's saying the Dodgers will celebrate on time. So it's will, W-I-L-L, instead of
My Will, W-E-LL. Maybe. But I stand by what I said. Again, I'm not going to listen to every Vince Scully broadcast. That would take literally my entire life up to this point to go through every game that he called over the years. But I think I'd go point Sean on this one. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. So a texter actually just texted this in because I was going to say from getting on the morning show to getting on the midday show. But this texter said, please tell me you are going to get on Willie and Derek for their terrible free agent opinions. Yes, I will. And we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live in the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So I went to bed late last night. I don't know how many of you stayed up for the Predators game, but I did. So I went to bed late last night, so I woke up again a little bit later, which I have got to get out of the habit of doing, Ian. And I do feel like if I ever have kids at some point, that'll probably end that pretty quick.
That's a rude awakening there, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
6 o'clock, here you go, you're ready.
Yeah, I think that will probably be inevitable at some point, hopefully, in my life. But I woke up this morning, and I, got all of our show prep done, going through our meetings, whatever we always do, talking to each other. And then I hopped up on the elliptical, and I put on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. And I was screaming at the television. Now, I think you guys all know I love all three of them with all of my heart. I really do. But I was listening to Derek and Willie, two guys who I think are very smart, two guys who I actually think really have Rand Carthon's best interest in. I think they like Rand Carthon. I think they think Rand Carthon's going to succeed. And I was listening to their stance on free agency today, and I'm just going to tell you, their stance is going to get Rand Carthon fired. Their stance was, we're not overpaying for free agents in free agency. I'll pay big money for Chris Jones, but I'm not going to pay big money for these random guys that are in free agency, and I'm not going to pay over the market value. And poor Caroline, she tried her hardest to fight back against what I think is incredibly a ridiculous opinion to no avail. Here's what they said.
I'm not saying that I'm not going to try to sign guys, once free agency hit the first couple of days. Yes, because I know if I don't offer contracts, then everybody's going to be gone. But I'm not going to sit here and pay $5 million over asking price just because somebody else wants him. No, it's like, I'm going to show you what we got. I'm going to show you what we're building here. Here's the contract. Yes, I'm going to have to pay you a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But again, I am not going to grossly pay because I know that eventually I grossly overpay you. If it doesn't work out in the draft, now we're back to this cycle again. My main thing is the draft. I'm supplementing through free agency. And when I'm supplementing, I'm not trying to pay guys over what their play said they're truly worth. That I'm not doing because I always got the draft, and I expect these young guys to come in here and be ready to play.
That sounds good. The Titans have 2 picks in the top 100. So that sounds great, right? I'm not overpaying in free agency. I'm going to sign guys, but I'm not going to pay more than the market value. That sounds good, but that's not really how this works. For starters, what is the market value? Well, I'm not going to pay $5 million more than the market. What determines the market? The market is determined by what teams are willing to pay. And it is not only against the rules of the NFL, but it is also against the law for the Titans to call the Bengals or to call the Rams or to call the Panthers and say, hey, how much money are you offering Johnson? Are you going to offer him $6 million a year? Because we're thinking about offering him $7 million, so you can't do that. That's called collusion. You're not allowed to do it. Bud Selig did it. Him and Jerry Reinsdorf did it. They got in a lot of trouble back in the day. You cannot do that. So how do you determine what the market is anyways? And the second thing is this. Again, it sounds good that I'm not going to overpay Tyler Biadasz, the starting center of the Dallas Cowboys. I am not going to overpay Tyler Biadasz to be the starting center of the Tennessee Titans. Well, then guess what? You're not going to get Tyler Biadasz because Tyler Biadasz is going to go to a team, if everything is equal, that probably has a better quarterback than the Titans do, right? The guy comes from the Dallas Cowboys. If he's getting offered $5 million by the Cowboys, and he's getting offered $6 million by the Ravens, and he's getting offered $5 million from the Titans, what team do you think he's not going to pick? The Titans have a quarterback that most people think stinks. And these guys are just going to sign up to play for the same amount of money that they would sign up to play somewhere else? Chidobe Awuzie comes from the Bengals. They've done nothing but win over the last 3 or 4 years. hey, Chidobe Awuzie, we want to pay you the exact same money Cincinnati wants to pay you. Come play for our team. That doesn't work. You have to overpay. You are the Titans. That's what the whole point of having all this money means. It means you have to overpay. That is how you make sure you get somebody. And any time that you tell me, oh, I don't want to overpay in free agency, I'll bring up one name, Christian Kirk. That is the definition of a contract that when it was signed, everybody in America thought, what are they doing? $18 million a year for Christian freaking Kirk, who might be what? A number 2, a number 3 wide receiver in the NFL, and they just paid him $18 million a year? Guess what? Jacksonville was the worst team in the NFL 2 years running. They had brought Urban Meyer in, and it was an unmitigated disaster. It was a total train wreck. It was an embarrassment. People were wondering if Trevor Lawrence was any good. They needed a receiver. All of the available free agent receivers all got tagged that year. Devontae Adams got tagged. Somebody else got tagged. All these guys got tagged. There was one guy in free agency. You think he wants to go to crappy Jacksonville? That butthole of a city, you think that he wanted to go to Jacksonville? Oh, yeah, I'm in Arizona right now. I've got offers from Arizona, the Cowboys, the Commanders, the Eagles, and Jacksonville. Which team are you going to pick? Oh, Jacksonville's offering me $6 million more than anybody else? Sold. And Christian Kirk has been the best receiver of the Jacksonville Jaguars over the last 2 years. And Christian Kirk is absolutely a major part of the equation as to why Jacksonville went from the worst team in the NFL to the divisional round of the playoffs to, again, competing for a playoff spot, which they didn't get this year because who got hurt at the end of the year? Christian Kirk. Jacksonville doesn't get Christian Kirk if they don't overpay. That's the point. So if you want players, there will be a couple of players that tell their agents, for whatever reason, I want to be on the Titans. I want to be in Nashville. Mike McGlinchey signed for $17.5 million with the Denver Broncos because, again, the Denver Broncos realize that if we want to get players and we don't have any draft choices, we're going to have to overpay. I was told Mike McGlinchey would take significantly less money to play for the Titans, but the Titans weren't interested at all. Why? I don't know, but that's their business. So there will be some players who want to play for the Titans. There just won't be that many. So you're going to have to overpay, right? You want a starting corner. Well, you're going to have to overpay. Because why would L'Jarius Sneed leave the Chiefs to go to you if you don't give him top dollar? Why would Kendall Fuller or Chidobe Awuzie go to you when they'll get offers from everybody else because you never have enough corners if you don't offer more money? So, again, it sounds great to the, hey, I'm not going to overpay. I'm not going to give an $8 million center $15 million. It sounds good. But it doesn't matter, then you won't get any center. So what you'll be doing is you'll be taking flyers on guys. And last year you did that. You took a flyer on Azeez Al-Shaair, and it was fine. You took a flyer on Daniel Brunskill, and it was fine. You took a flyer with Andre Dillard, and it was a train wreck. You took a flyer on Arden Key. So of any of these players, do you consider them legitimate high-end NFL starters? And you know the answer to that. I'm not saying go out and give Lloyd Cushenberry $25 million because you don't have to do that. But if you want Tyler Biadasz or you want Lloyd Cushenberry or you want Jonah Williams or you want Chidobe Awuzie or you want Hollywood Brown or you want Calvin Ridley, you have to overpay. I remember when the Predators signed Ryan O'Reilly Twitter said, oh my God, 4 years? That's too much. That's too much money. That's because Barry Trotz wanted Ryan O'Reilly. So he has to pay more for a longer term than everybody else. Because Ryan O'Reilly wasn't going to say, yeah, I've been competing for the cup the last couple of years. I won it a handful of years ago. And I'm going to go ahead and play for Nashville right now, who's in the middle of a rebuild. That's how the NFL works, folks. So like I said, I heard Derek and Willie today saying, oh, no, you can't overpay. You can't overpay. You guys are trying to get Rand Carthon fired. That's all I can come up with. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And FanDuel Sportsbook, not big fans of Will Levis's, apparently. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
turning this thing around. I mean, it's not overnight. I mean, it's going to take some time, and we're going to work really hard. And you just never know where this can go. But we understand that there needs to be a little patience involved in building a roster. It's going to be focused, methodical approach where we're trying to get first downs before we get touchdowns. But maybe our quarterback develops into one of the great young stars of our league. You just never know what can happen. And at the end of the day, Ray and I talk about this all the time. When you come into an organization, you identify what needs to be fixed. You hire the best before anybody else does, and you develop an obsession with winning immediately. That's what we get paid to do, is to win. So there's no – as we approach this season, we're doing everything we can to assemble a roster to allow us to compete at the highest level.
That was Chad Brinker on the Titans podcast, and he's saying, hey, fans need to be patient, but we've got to win immediately. And he is right. You've got to win immediately. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Again, Derek and Willie's planning free agency. I'm not overpaying. Good. But you're not going to get any players if you do that. You're going to have to overpay. It's just the reality. Nobody wants to come to the Titans. And one texter says, Willie and Derek's point was that if you have to overpay, they would wait for somebody in free agent next year. But the free agent market is the exact same every year. See, here's the problem, though. If they wait, if Rand Carthon says, I need 2 tackles, and I'm going to be able to draft one with the 7th pick, so I'm going to sign Jonah Williams to play right tackle. But Jonah Williams does kind of stink. Now, he doesn't stink as much as the tackles that you have, but he's not great. I mean, there are some warts on that. There's warts on everybody that hits free agency. That's why Nick Bosa doesn't go to free agency. But again, he says, fine, I am going to wait for next year's free agent class because there might be more tackles in next year's free agent class, and I'm not going to spend $40 million on Jonah Williams just because I have to have a tackle. That might be sound business. But, Ian, what happens if Rand Carthon waits for next offseason to fill the 16 holes that they have?
All the holes, you mean?
Yeah. If it's, I don't want to overpay, so I'll wait till next year.
Well, you got to fill some holes because then you'll have to fill them all again, and the team's going to be terrible.
Well, what happens if that happens?
You think he would get fired?
Yes.
Maybe.
Look, this owner turns on everybody as fast as she can. She gave Robinson an extension, fired him 8 months later. Last year, Vrabel was a sacred cow. He's gone. Rand's next. It's just reality around here. That's how the Titans operate. So you can say, well, they'll wait till next year to see, so we'll save the money for next year. Okay, that's great. So somebody else will be able to use that money next year. That's how the NFL works. Ron says, we overpaid for Julio, Clowney, and for Randy Moss. And how did that turn out? The Titans didn't overpay for Randy Moss. Randy Moss was a waiver claim in the middle of the season. The Titans overpaid for Julio Jones. But the problem with Julio Jones wasn't the money. The problem was the 2nd round and 4th round draft choices that they gave up for Julio Jones. See, the difference between me and you is that the money doesn't matter to me because cap's fake. Now, if you want to say, okay, well, Amy gives them a budget and Clowney was $12 million out of that budget, that's fine. And that was bad. But I don't think that's the end of the world as to why you weren't good. It didn't help. And you guys thought Clowney was the freaking saving grace. And I tried to tell you. I went on the news with Corey Curtis the day he was signed. I said, ooh, I don't like that. And boy, people got mad at me. Alex from Nashville says, why do fans and media care about how much the Titans pay a free agent? It's not our money, so who cares? That's a really great point. So 2 years ago, I want to say that the 2023 season was when I discovered that the salary cap was fake. I think that in the 2022 season, in the 2022 offseason, I thought the cap was real. I was big on converting to bonuses and pushing money here and trying to not put too much dead money there. And then finally I saw like the Jared Goff trade, and I think there was another that I just said, okay, fine, this thing's fake. And I can't remember what it was. But when I thought that the cap mattered, I really did think, hey, like, we got to watch the money here. We got to focus on this money for Jonnu Smith, and we got to focus on this. And as I have now learned that the salary cap is all bull crap, I just have decided I don't care how much they pay. I don't even know how much money they paid DeAndre Hopkins last year. I think it was $12 million. It might have been 13 or 14. I have no idea, and I don't care. And I do agree with the texter. But that's because people think that the cap is real. So when you give somebody $12 million, it's like, oh my God, that's going to hurt our cap. I mean, everybody keeps talking about all the cap space the Titans have. $65 million in cap space. You do know that if you restructure Jeffrey Simmons' contract, you'll end up with like another $30 million in cap space or another $24 million in cap space or something like that. You can get as much of that as you want. I mean, but again, to the texter's point, why do we care? I think it's fair. Eli says, if you think Will Levis is the quarterback, you only have 3 years to the massive contract, and this is the time to spend in free agency. I think the reality here for me is more that if Will Levis is going to be the guy you have to spend in free agency, because if you put a bargain basement Andre Dillard offensive line in front of him and you have him throwing to Nick Westbrook-Akine, we already know how that's going to turn out, and go ruin the quarterback. That's why Jacksonville overpaid for Christian Kirk. They needed to get somebody for the quarterback. One texter says, give the new offensive line coach a chance before you spend the money. So what are you going to do in September? See, I remember a couple years ago, the Titans released Dennis Kelly right before the start of the new league year, and they signed Kendall Lamb. Again, kind of a backup-ish type player. They drafted Dylan Radins in the second round, and I didn't know who the hell that was, but it was clear that they drafted Radins to be the right tackle. And I remember texting Joe, because we weren't allowed to report who was playing where at training camp or something like that, and he told me that in OTAs, Radins and Lamb were splitting were splitting reps at right tackle. So then training camp starts. No pads for the first couple of days. And I watch Ola Adeni just go right off the edge, right around Kendall Lamb and Dylan Radins over and over again. And I turned to Joe and I said, these guys suck. And he was like, well, it's early. They don't have pads on, whatever. And Jim Wyatt asked a question about the right tackle position. And Vrabel was like, well, Ty Sambrailo's going to get back healthy and David Quessenberry's going to get in the mix. And I'm like, yeah, he thinks those two guys stink. And very quickly, Vrabel was done with Dylan Radins and Kendall Lamb as that experiment at right tackle, and Quessenberry was the right tackle. This past year, the same thing happened. They signed Dillard thinking he was going to be the left tackle. OTAs, he's getting absolutely eaten alive by Arden Key. Training camp, he's getting annihilated by Arden Key. And Vrabel wouldn't make a change. They wouldn't do anything. Remember, they started training camp due to Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
Due to PT suspension. They started training camp with Jamarco Jones at right tackle and Andre Dillard at left tackle. And I sat there and I'm watching Dillard get beat every single week, every single day. And Vrabel's like, well, Arden Key is really, really good. He does that to a lot of people. I'm like, Mike, I see what I'm seeing with my eyes here. I don't understand why you're not seeing. And the reason why was because they didn't have an answer. They didn't have another option. They didn't have somebody else. They didn't have a David Quessenberry on the team that they could try there. So when you say, let's give the new line coach a chance before we spend any money, you're going to put that line coach in that exact same position in August where it's like, well, you know, we decided to try Radins at right tackle, and shockingly, he still sucks. So what are we going to do? You can't trade for people then. You can't sign people then. You can't draft people then. Jonah Williams is gone at that point. Joe Alt is gone. So this is why you have to overpay now for starters. This is how you get those guys. You overpay. It's free agency. Nobody lets good, healthy, in their prime players get to free agency. It's the one league, because of the collectively bargained franchise tag, it's the one league that keeps the superstar players on the team no matter what. And even the poor franchises like Cincinnati, they realize they have to pay up. Texter says, you use those examples of free agents being fine, but if Dillard wasn't that bad, then the Titans would have been complaining about those guys because you can't win with them. They just weren't as bad as Dillard. Who am I talking about? Who's this guy talking about? We'd be complaining about those guys because you really can't win with them. They just weren't as bad as Dillard. Are we talking about Al-Shaair and Key and those guys? Like, is that what I have? Whatever. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Jason Fitz will join us here on the program. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, FanDuel Sports put out their way too early 2024 quarterback rankings. Patrick Mahomes is 1, Josh Allen 2, Lamar Jackson 3, Joe Burrow 4. I think that's ridiculous, by the way. I think Joe Burrow is very clearly number 2. I think he is the only guy who is a contemporary to Patrick Mahomes, but I digress. C.J. Stroud 4, Matthew Stafford 6, Justin Herbert 7, Jordan Love 8, Dak Prescott 9, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, and they got Caleb Williams and Geno Smith ahead of Aaron Rodgers, which I think is wild. But the big story is they've got Will Levis, number 32, J.J. McCarthy 31, Bryce Young 30, Russell Wilson 28, Michael Penix 27, Daniel Jones 26, Jaden Daniels 23, Anthony Richardson 22, Justin Fields 20. I mean, come on. Jason Fitz joins us now on the program, Yahoo Sports and Fox Sports Radio. Fitz, is Will Levis the 32nd best quarterback in the NFL?
No, but here's the thing. You know, I tell this story often, but you remember I went years ago, I got a tattoo with Max Crosby at the NFL draft out in Vegas. And when we got tattoos, we spent about 4 hours talking over the course of that time. And the one thing I'll never forget when we talked about just the draft is he said, people never forget the number by your name when you came into the league. It always sticks with you, not just players, but like front office people, the respect you get. That was his mindset. I don't think he's wrong in the sense that wherever you're picked, you have to change the narrative. And has Will Levis done, because remember, the only real national conversation about Will Levis was pre-draft, is he worth being a high pick? And then at the draft, well, did they reach for him in the second round? Was it a free fall of Will Levis? So what has been done to change any of that mindset? So the answer to that is, frankly, nothing. And whatever he was doing, most people weren't paying attention to on a national level. So I think what you have when you have these rankings are, you know, somebody that's watched very little of Will Levis that doesn't really know. I mean, when I talk to people, they'll tell you the grade kind of incomplete. Who knows? Like, the Titans were such a dumpster fire last year. It's hard to figure out what to make of Will Levis. So might be good, might not. Who knows? And I think when you have that logic on top of the logic coming into the league, it's just people are going to assign that low number to you.
But shouldn't I feel that way about Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson too? Like Bryce Young, it was a tire fire in Carolina. Anthony Richardson played like 4 games. And they've got Caleb Williams at 12 ahead of Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers.
Well, okay. I mean, I wouldn't put Caleb Williams up that high on the list. I think there's, you know, I'm already talking to people I think are smart that are inconsistent on whether or not Caleb Williams is going to be the true answer. So let's relax a little bit on him at 12. But I will say this, with Anthony Richardson, in the limited time he played, people loved it, right? And we all knew he was going to be a project. So knowing that that was the presumption coming in, he's going to be a project. And then, hey, he plays pretty well in the time that he has. And so everybody will give him benefit of the doubt. The Bryce Young thing, I think that's a more interesting comp, because did he look so bad in the 1 year that we're now going to call Bryce Young a bust? And where he gets a little benefit of the doubt is that people just presume that the Panthers screwed up and it's going to be this Trevor Lawrence-like ascension. I don't know, man. I think I liked Bryce Young fine coming out, but I think if you look at what we saw last year for Bryce Young, it looks problematic. So C.J. Stroud is so high on the list because there were lower expectations for him even than what we saw last year, right? So, like, that's all I'm saying is, like, the presumption definitely influences the ranking right now.
So I heard our midday show. They kind of went over like the second half of the list, right? So I think 14, 15, 16, Goff, Rodgers, Cousins, Purdy, they cut those guys out, and they went up from that point on. Murray, Tua, Fields, May, those guys, who would you rather have? Drake May, for instance, or Will Levis? And then the 3 of them picked. And they went to Justin Fields, and all 3 of them picked Justin Fields over Will Levis. And I thought that was crazy. I texted Porth, who's in Chicago, and I said Fields or Levis, and he said Levis. And I said all 3 of them on the midday show picked Fields. And he said Fields can't even read a defense. So my much larger question to you is, I hear all this talk about Justin Fields, Fitz, and I'm like, I don't even think he's that good. It's like, okay, should Chicago keep Fields and trade the number 1 pick? No. And then it's like, well, where all these teams are going to want Justin Fields. I'm like, Fields isn't even good. What is the deal with Fields?
You're right. Fields isn't good. And again, I'm going to go back to what people thought coming out he was going to be good, so they want to give him benefit of the doubt. It's got to
But
be
Matt
everybody
Jones
else
sucks now too, and Zach Wilson sucks, and they all suck. Trey Lance sucks. They all suck.
Yeah, but think about it. Like being real for a second. Trey Lance, when he was drafted, people said, "Nah, you can't take Trey Lance." They're like, "We knew he was a project." Zach Wilson, people had questions about when Justin. If we're just going to take the tape on it, by the way, I don't think Fields deserves to be a high-level starting quarterback. I think his trade value coming into this draft is probably, I don't know, a conditional fourth-rounder that could turn into a third-rounder if he plays really well. Like, I think that's kind of real for what they could get for him. And then somebody's going to try and run it back and see if they can get the best out of him because they're in a quarterback starve. The NFL doesn't have enough starting quarterbacks. So, the question is going to be, do you want Justin Fields or Jimmy G next year? There are teams that are going to be screwed into that question, right? So all of a sudden, that's where Justin Fields, he's going to have a job somewhere because there aren't enough quality quarterbacks that can fill the number of holes that we have across the league. Like, I mean, think about it. Kirk Cousins is supposed to be a massive, coming off the Achilles injury, Kirk Cousins is supposed to be the guy you're going to bank on to get you to the Super Bowl. Like, that's how desperate everybody is to have an answer at quarterback. So Fields gets a little benefit of the doubt because people liked him coming out and because people believe that Chicago screwed him up. Like, look, I don't think there's any chance Chicago passes on the number 1 overall pick. I can't find anyone close to the team that actually works on the team and reports around the team that doesn't think that, it's going to be quarterback at 1 for Chicago. So I think this is all just stupid draft noise. Fields is going to get traded on the second day of the draft, third day of the draft for something, and Caleb Williams or Drake May is going to be the starting quarterback next year for Chicago.
Okay, so a lot of people, Jason Fitz is with us, think that the Steelers are going to go for Fields. Why would the Steelers not just go for Tannehill? If they say, hey, we're gonna have competition for Kenny Pickett, and we're going to go bring Arthur Smith in to be the OC, why not just bring in Tannehill? My gut would be that Tannehill probably ends up beating Pickett out, but if not, Tannehill can be the backup. I mean, again, you're talking about all these teams lining up for Kirk Cousins. I know Tannehill had a down year last year. The Titans were horrible. I don't understand why everybody's just completely forgotten about him.
I wouldn't forget about Tannehill. I think he's going to start somewhere next year, and I think Pittsburgh actually, to your point, makes a lot of sense. Right now, if I was rubbing the crystal ball, Justin Fields ends up in Atlanta. And, I think Atlanta goes in and says, hey, let's at least take a stab at this for 1 year and see what we can do. I think Tannehill ends up starting somewhere next year because, I look at my own beloved Raiders. Like, the Raiders picking at 13 are not going to have a chance at a top 4 quarterback in the draft, I don't believe. They may not even have a chance picking at 13 at a top 5 quarterback in the draft. So, I look across the board and say, if you're the Raiders, you're not bringing in Tannehill to try and compete with him. I'd like to with Aiden O'Connell. That's very real. So I think Tannehill would make a ton of sense for Pittsburgh, especially if you're Tomlin and you want a veteran that can just sort of come in and be a calming presence and sort of know what's going on there. So I don't hate that call at all. I think Fields ends up in Atlanta, and Tannehill to the Pittsburgh Steelers makes a ton of sense, actually.
Jason Fitz is with us right now. I looked it up yesterday. A third of the league is over the cap for next season. And I'm talking about by 20, 30, 40, in the case of the Saints, $80 million. Is this the year that the masses will understand that the cap is fake and that, again, New Orleans is going to sign free agents and the Chargers that are $40 million over, they'll sign free agents? And is this the year that people finally stop doing this thing where it's like, oh, well, they don't have the cap space for that guy? Or is this myth going to keep getting perpetuated as far as I don't think
it's a myth. I don't think it's a myth. At some point,
so you don't think the Saints? You don't think the Saints are going to be able to fill the team, or the Bills, or the Chargers?
I don't think the Saints are going to be able to do what they would otherwise be able to do, and I think the Saints are locked in. Like, the Saints are a great example of they have a terrible contract with Derek Carr. They can't get out of. They're not going to have an answer at the quarterback position.
That's because they gave it to him. Like, that, a bad decision. Like, they didn't sign Derek Carr because of the cap.
Like,
they signed Derek Carr because they're stupid.
Yeah, but again, it's still, like, what's preventing them from moving on from that stupid mistake is money. Like you mentioned, the Chargers, sure, they're going to get under the cap, and in order to do that, I think the Chargers are going to go into a basic full rebuild next year. Just like everybody said Sean Payton was going to come in and immediately the Broncos were going to be glorious. And what happens? Sean Payton comes in, realizes that this situation sucks, rips it down to his studs, which is what every new coach does. I mean,
he didn't
you
do
look
that.
at the cuts that the Broncos?
No, he went out and spent a boatload of money. He bought McGlinchey. He bought Powers. He bought Zach Allen. He spent a boatload of money, and they're $30 million over, and they're going to cut Russell. And for you, dead cap, that's like $40 million. So now they're going to be $70 million. The Broncos are going to be fine.
Of course, everybody's going to be fine, but you're not going to be able to bid on the top talent. That's unavoidable. I mean, go back, just stick with the Chargers for a second. In order to get under the cap, the Chargers are going to have to likely cut Keenan Allen, cut Khalil Mack, both people that had tremendous production for him last year, and they're going to have to address those needs in the draft, maybe. They're going to lose more star power than they're going to be able to gain. Will they be able to sign some people? Sure. Will they be able to go out and spend a boatload of money? No. Should you spend a boatload of money at the beginning of free agency? No. That's not the right way to build your team anyway. So, is the salary cap a lie? No, the salary cap's not a lie. It definitely, there are two things in the NFL that will impact you. Your owner has to have cash on hand to advance fund contracts, which not every team does. And then number two, you're going to have to at some point pay certain contracts. You can kick it down the road all day long, but at some point you do have to pay those numbers. It's not a make-believe number that they're going to have to deal with in the accounting of the Broncos. And you can't tell me that getting rid of Russ doesn't impact their ability to sign other players.
I think it's totally make-believe, and here's why I think it's totally make-believe. Buffalo's going to be competing for the Super Bowl next year. You agree with me on that?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I think Buffalo's still going to be very good.
So they're $30 million over the cap. So what they're going to do is they're going to redo Josh Allen. They're going to redo Stephon Diggs. They're going to redo all these high-end contracts. They'll be under the cap. And this time next year, when Buffalo loses to Kansas City in the divisional round of the AFC title game next year, Buffalo's going to be $50 million over the cap next year as opposed to $30 million over the cap this year. And then they're going to do the same thing. And they're going to keep doing the same thing until Josh Allen isn't good anymore or gets hurt or whatever. They're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's not going to matter because they have Josh Allen. And it's not going to – the reason why the Broncos suck is not because of the cap. It's because Russell stinks. That's why.
But what you're saying is that the cap doesn't matter if you have one of the five best players in the NFL. Sure, I'll agree with you that if you have one of the five best quarterbacks in the league, the cap probably isn't a huge issue for you. Is it an issue right now? Yeah, it is an issue for some teams. And yeah, Buffalo, I don't think they can just kick Diggs down the road because I don't think Diggs wants to be there. So I'm not sure he's going to do anything to help them on the cap front. In fact, they may have to make
he might be crazy. He might not sign give me the money up front. He may not sign that, which is.
I mean, he wants out of Buffalo. So if he wants out of Buffalo, now this is where things get complicated because everything comes up roses as long as everybody's willing to kick the money down kick the can down the street. Once you've got one or two guys that aren't, how are you then getting rid of them? How are you taking that hit? And how are you replacing them? I mean, this is the lost part of the Chiefs conversation is that they drafted really well for years. That's how they built this empire. They hit on every first, second, and third round draft pick they had for 6 straight years, every single one of them. No team seems to be able to do that. If you're going to start signing people, then you got to draft well. And if you draft well, then you can lose some of these people. Maybe the salary cap doesn't matter if you have Mahomes or Josh Allen. But the salary cap sure as heck matters if you're the middle of the league and you're trying to figure out how to get some of the people in, and then you're trying to work it around contracts. Look, how many years have we heard you can't have a high-paid quarterback and win? The highest-paid quarterback in the NFL this year by cap number this year was Patrick Mahomes, and he won. So does that mean that now that doesn't mean anything, that you can pay a quarterback and win? If we are sitting here in a beautiful world in 3 years, if Will Levis is up to be the highest-paid quarterback in the NFL, you're going to be sitting on this radio show saying, you can't pay a quarterback. Well, yeah, you can if you got Mahomes. So
you think I'm going to say that?
Oh, my God, yeah.
You think I'm going to say that?
Yes. If Will Levis hasn't won a Super Bowl and suddenly wants $80 million a year, you would say that. You would come on the air and say, oh, you can't pay your quarterback and still build a team around him. You know you would say that.
No, because the only thing that matters is how much money the owner is willing to spend. And considering that we're giving the owner $1.2 billion for a free stadium for them to take all of our money, I am not going to sympathize with the Titans if they get a franchise quarterback and they pay the franchise quarterback and then they start lying to the fans of, oh, we can't get anybody else because of the cap.
I am not going to take
That's
up
not
for
a
that.
lot, though. Look at the Cowboys. How are the Cowboys going to put Parsons, CD, and Dak all under the cap if they all want the epic money? And, that's a real thing.
No,
You have to acknowledge
guess
that
what?
is a real thing.
The Cowboys are $20 million over the cap, and they're going to give all those guys contracts, and they are still going to be fine. And they'll be the exact same team they've always been. They'll get to the wild card or divisional round, and they'll get beat because Dak's not that good. That is, it's all the same, Fitz. It doesn't matter. You can screw the contracts however you want. You can get under the cap, and the team that has Mahomes is going to win, and it doesn't matter if he's got the highest cap hit or the lowest cap hit. It doesn't matter.
So you don't think there's a single team in the league this year that won't be able to sign Chris Jones in 3 weeks in the beginning of free agency, no matter how much they want him, because he wants to be the highest paid player at his position, that everybody could just say, hey, if he wants $35 million, no worries. Part of the reason he's going to walk from Kansas City is because of the salary cap.
You're wrong. You're 100% wrong on this. If Chris Jones signs an extension, the cap number goes down. If they had given Chris Jones a contract this offseason, when he wanted it, when he held out, if they gave him a contract, his cap number would have gone down, and then they could have spent more at wide receiver and on the offensive line. And you know that.
Right now, he's in a situation where he wants a 2 or 3 year deal, fully guaranteed, which won't allow that cap number to be spread out on the same team that has L'Jarius
They're all
Sneed,
spread out. Deshaun's deal is spread out. That's fully guaranteed, and it gets spread out and redone every year. You think Deshaun Watson's going to have a $64 million cap charge this year?
I don't know.
He's going to redo the deal. They always do that.
How is he going to redo the deal without giving money back?
How's he going to? They're going to add void years to the contract, and so it's going to be a 5-year deal. They're going to give him the, 40-something million, up 46. They're going to give him the $46 million as a signing bonus, or 45 of it, and then it's going to spread out over those 5 years. That's how that's going to work.
And at some point, they're going to have to allocate for the fact that when he is not on the team, the number balloons. This is real. The number balloons. At some point, there is consequence to the salary cap action.
Which team has had the consequences, Fitz?
What'd you say?
Which team has had the consequences? Which team has had to gut their team and just say, hey, you know what? We had a Super Bowl caliber team.
My life example is that the Raiders had to do it after they went to the Super Bowl. They had to gut the whole thing because they were in salary cap hell.
Different collective bargaining agreement.
Which the Buccaneers then had to do after the Buccaneers went through salary cap hell.
Different CBA. First of all, the reason why the Raiders suck so bad.
For an example, and I gave you 2 examples.
It's a different CBA. The rules aren't the same. What are you talking about? There were no void years back then. You couldn't put void years in a contract.
So you're saying right now that there's been no consequence to the ability for the, let's say, New Orleans Saints to build their roster because consistently they've been on the wrong side of the cap. You're saying there's been no consequence. So the only reason they haven't been able to go out and actually add big name free agents to that team.
They did. They signed the top quarterback on the market last year.
They signed Derek Carr last year.
The top free agent quarterback, just like Kirk Cousins.
On a relatively team-friendly deal. They signed.
He didn't sign a relatively team-friendly deal. He signed a $100 million contract.
Which was considered friendly. The Raiders offered him more than that. Stillman, they offered him more than that before that.
You're so wrong about this. They signed, in each of the last 2 years, the Saints, they're $60 million over the cap. They're $70 million over the cap. In each of the last 2 off seasons, the Saints have either signed the top free agent available quarterback, Derek Carr, or they tried to sign the top free agent quarterback in Deshaun Watson the year before.
How much did Derek Carr make compared to the other top quarterbacks on the market with his cap value last year? He was around.
Who else was on the market?
He was around that. Well,
he made more than Baker.
At the end of the day, it wasn't a year where they had to turn around and put out $50 million at the quarterback position.
I mean, again, you're talking about the entire league. Where does Carr rank? Carr signed for about probably where he ranks in terms of quarterback play, right? 17th most or 14th most or whatever. But again, I'm talking about the free agent market. He was the top quarterback on the free agent market. Teams wanted Derek Carr, and he went to the Saints. And if they were so handcuffed by the cap
they would not have been able to sign the top quarterback on the free agent market.
I'd have to look back and see who else they also signed and what their actual cap spending was last year. But we see, specifically, that is at least an example of a team that has had to rebuild multiple times because of the cap. We know that. Like, the Saints were bad for a minute because they had nobody. Why did they have nobody? Because they went through a cap gutting of their roster. Like, that's the inevitability that happens.
The Saints are bad because Drew Brees retired. That's why they're
bad. What
bad.
did they do to the roster after Drew Brees retired?
Who did they lose?
Off the top of my head,
did they cut Alvin Kamara? Did they cut Michael Thomas?
Yeah, they signed Michael Thomas.
Did they cut Cam Jordan?
And are they
Demario
keeping
Davis?
Michael Thomas now?
They got all their good players. They get Michael Thomas is still on the team.
Are they keeping him in this offseason, or is there a financial ramification? Again,
he's not any good. That's why they're letting him go, because he sucks.
Can the Chiefs go back to the Chiefs? Can the Chiefs have Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, and Patrick Mahomes all get what they want under this year's CBA? Can they? The answer to that is no.
They absolutely could. I could, in this next commercial break.
So you think they're choosing to let the most important player on the defensive side of the ball go, simply the person that really altered the entire outcome of the Super Bowl for the second time in his career? You think they're letting him walk because it's just not financially in the cards to want to keep him when he's essentially looking for a 3-year deal? So they're just letting Chris Jones walk for nothing? That's crazy.
That's what I think they're doing. I think it's the same reason they let go of Tyreek Hill. It's the same reason. It is because the owner doesn't want to pay the money. Again, if they signed Chris Jones to a new contract this offseason, his cap number would have been lower.
His cap number would not have been lowered.
Yes, it would have been. You know how this works, Vince. You give him a signing bonus.
I know how this works. If he wants a fully guaranteed contract at a massive number, which is what he wants, if he wants a fully guaranteed 3-year contract, they will not put $10 million of it now to put $120 of it later on a 30-year-old defensive lineman. So if he wants a fully guaranteed contract worth, let's say, $35 million a year, which is $105 million, then he's going to, just like Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed contract accounts to every single year, they're going to have to take that because they are not going to be willing to eat, hear me, the salary cap of a $100 million penalty at the end of that deal. So if he wants a 3-year, $105 million fully guaranteed contract, which is what he was asking for last year, the only way they can do that is to go 30, 30, and 30.
So
and that's just... exactly. I mean, look at over the cap on Deshaun's cap numbers.
Who were the Browns not able to sign because of Deshaun? Because they've given Myles Garrett a top-of-the-market contract. They've given Denzel Ward a top-of-the-market contract. They're paying Amari Cooper. They're paying their entire offensive line. They're paying a running back.
I mean, off the top of my head, I don't remember, but use the Bengals as a different example. Like, you think they wanted to let Jesse Bates walk last year? That hurt their defense. They wanted to keep Jesse Bates. They couldn't do it. They didn't have the money.
Traditionally the poorest owners in the NFL.
But look, so are we talking, like, at the end of the day, they paid the people they could pay, and they can't pay everybody. The whole reason that T. Higgins is going to get franchised and then not stick around is because they can't afford to pay Joe Burrow and pay T. Higgins and pay Jamar Chase. Why? Because the salary cap's real.
No, it's because they're cheap. That's why. It's because they're cheap. That's
so
why.
You think the Bengals are finally in an era of dominance, and they're letting roughly $5 million be the reason that they're willing to let part of that walk away?
Yes.
There's just no support.
In order to have those three guys, in order to give Chase a top-of-the-market deal and to tag Higgins and have him play, the Bengals would have the number 2 payroll in the NFL before they even come close to adding on defense or whatever. The number 2 payroll behind Cleveland. And I just don't think the Brown family is going to pay for that. I think that Haslam will pay for it, and I think the Bills will pay for it, the Pagulas, and I think the Ravens will pay for it. But I don't think that the traditionally cheapest franchise in the NFL is going to pay for that. Fitz, I love you as always, but I got to argue with Joe next. So it was a good warm-up right here. Jason Fitz joining us on the program. Stillman and Company. Ian's going to kill me. Jared versus Joe's next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios, and we are super late to start this hour because Jason Fitz, I tell you, he's like Joe in his belief of the cap. Caroline's here for Jared versus Joe. Hello, Caroline.
Don't you blame Fitzy for being late.
Oh, it was
you run the program.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know why Chris Jones. He does not know that Chris Jones signing an extension last year would have lowered his cap. I don't even want to. I just got to. Hello, Caroline. Time for Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexrode. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game.
Joe, I don't want to hear it out of you. Caroline, go. Oh, excuse me. Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Go ahead.
Jeez Louise. Hello, everyone. Jared, you go first. How aggressive do the Titans need to be in free agency?
The Titans, by my count, have 16 holes, which is wild. And I think that, I want to see the Titans. When you sign a guy on day one of free agency, that is top of the market money, right? That is Jonnu Smith getting $50 million guaranteed. And that deal was signed, 2 minutes after the legal tampering window opened. I think the Titans need to sign 5 or 6 guys on day one of free agency of those 16 holes that they have. And I think that at different positions there will be multiple guys, which means that they can be less aggressive about overpaying. But I think at other positions, they are going to have to pay. And they are going to have to be aggressive, right? Like, to me, there are 3 corners that they can sign. And it's Chidobe Awuzie, Kendall Fuller, or L'Jarius Sneed. All 3 of those guys are going to sign for a lot of money. All 3 of those guys are probably going to sign for more money than they're worth. And I think the Titans are going to have to sign one of those guys. And I think that, again, you're going to have to be aggressive on that. I think they're going to have to sign on the first day of free agency an inside linebacker, a corner, a center, an offensive lineman, which it could be a tackle or a guard. I think I would prefer a tackle that can probably play right tackle, and probably a receiver. So I think that's going to be really aggressive, and we're talking, again, top of the market. The word market, I guess, needs to be defined because, I don't think they'll pay Gabriel Davis or Hollywood Brown. I don't think they'll pay them the kind of money that Tyreek Hill makes. But, I think you'll end up paying one of those guys more money than you want to pay them. But if you want them to be on the Titans, you have to aggressively pursue them. So I think they need to be pretty aggressive.
Yeah, I say very aggressive. Look, I say the Titans should absolutely take advantage of, ready for this, their cap space and spend a lot of money. And I'm with Jared on the corners. Wait, now, you didn't mention Jalen Johnson. Did something happen with Jalen Johnson?
Well, he's going to be tagged.
Yeah, he's probably going to be tagged because he would be another tremendous possibility. But I think corner, that's what we talked about on the show today. Corner, to me, is like that's the free agent position where you've got to – you just can't draft everything. So you've got to go try to get one of those top guys. I'm with you. Get offensive linemen. I don't know if I agree on tackle just because I don't know anybody. I think there's some pretty good interior offensive linemen that are out there. I don't love the tackle group. And I think – receiver too. I like if you can find someone who can. You need to improve that room, not just add your top guy to go next to Hopkins. You got to improve the depth of that room too. So aggressive. You're going to have to overpay in some instances, but that's just the reality of the situation. So absolutely, big time aggressive.
Well, I think when it comes to being aggressive in free agency, the depth of a position can be done on day 5 and 6 when guys start to get really nervous about whether or not there are going to be contracts out there. I'm talking about day 1 where you're spending a lot of money. Those are the days where you're going to have to be pretty aggressive.
And with this team, who knows? New regime and all that stuff. And I do think Nashville may help the Titans a little bit just because people like Nashville. But, you're probably going to, if you're comparing yourself to a team that's closer to contending, that may mean that you have to pony up a little bit more. And the thing about draft is I think it's really deep at receiver and tackle, offensive tackle. So I just think it's just so obvious to me that the first two picks are going to be one or the other. I mean, there's always a chance that there's an edge or something that you just can't pass up, and it's clearly number one on your board. But I think that's probably how it's going to fall. And so everything else, I think you have to do so much work in free agency to get this roster to a decent situation.
I think the Titans need to sign six guys on day one of free agency, and they need to have 10 guys signed by the first week of free agency.
Okay.
And so, again, to your point, like, you don't like Jonah Williams, but he might be like the best tackle on the market. So then you have to sign him because you have to have a right tackle.
See, yeah, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, it all depends on what you think of Jonah Williams, what they think of Jonah Williams. But that's where to me, spending in free agency can be frivolous. Is if it's just like, he's the best guy out there, so sorry, you got to do it. Like, is Jonah Williams at this stage in his career? I mean, like, you guys can jump all over me for this, and that's fine. But, like, I'm not totally out on Nicholas Petit-Frere possibly being a decent player in this league. I'm going to give him a little bit of a mulligan for last year. There are some other guys. You got a great O-line coach in there. Yeah, he had a pretty good first half of his rookie year, I thought. Once he started, but the second half, I thought he struggled more. So, I mean, and the numbers bear that out. So I don't know why that is. But bottom line, there is still the draft. And the depth at tackle is such that you really, I think, could, even like in the fourth, get a tackle.
A starting tackle in the fourth round of the NFL draft.
Oh, God, Jared, it happens all the time. Trey Smith, plug-and-play sixth-round pick.
First of all, Trey Smith's not a starting tackle. Secondly,
you don't think starting tackles ever go in the fourth round?
I think I think guys get drafted in the fourth round that sit on the bench for a year and develop into a starting tackle. I think that happens. I don't think teams draft guys in the fourth round saying, we draft Johnny in the fourth round, he's our right tackle. And if they do, they're stupid.
But see, this is where, and again, Jonah Williams is an example. Maybe he is a wise investment. I'm skeptical of him personally.
You got two picks in the top 100 this year. That means to me you can count on 2 holes being plugged in the draft. You got 16 holes.
Sure. That's all fine, but you still don't just pay because it's almost like drafting. Like, draft for need, let's just draft that position. You don't just pay someone because they happen to fill a position. And if
that's exactly what you do. That is exactly what free agency is.
Jared, you pay someone you think will be good. You still have to evaluate the players. You don't just blindly pay someone who fills a position. You have to think you have to believe that they're going to be good enough to start. Is he?
Yes.
I mean, is he good enough at this point? Okay.
Yes, that's what you have to do. It's binary. Are they an NFL starter?
That's what you believe. That's what you believe.
I mean, if the guy's been a starter for 5 years, he's a starter.
Yeah.
Like Chidobe Awuzie is a starting corner.
He's a very flawed player, but
right, and he's a starting corner. Like, that's how this league works.
Yeah, don't tell me how this league works, Mr. Cap is fake.
Yeah,
okay?
Mr. Cap is real. That's the difference. You don't understand how it works. You think teams are trying to fit it under the cap. Caroline, what's next?
So please educate us. Please educate us. Brilliant.
So apparently there's been some tea spilling, some gossiping happening over on West End. Because the Door Report podcast said that tonight will be Jerry Stackhouse's final game with the Doors, that he'll be fired after the game tonight. Is that true? Will Jerry Stackhouse lose his job tonight? Should he be fired tonight? Joe, you go first.
Okay, you just said, is it true? And then what?
Is it true? And should it be Jerry Stackhouse's last game?
Well, if I knew it was true, I would not be talking to you guys right now. I can tell you that. I would be writing that up. But
so you didn't get the tea?
I don't. I did not get that. I will say that.
No tea for you, Joe.
Well, I will say that it's kind of strangely quiet over there today. I will say that.
Really?
So take that for whatever it's worth. Take that for whatever it's worth. But should he? I mean, again, we're doing does Jerry need to be fired? I don't have a problem with it. Is it a desperate?
He's your coach.
God, we must fire him. Oh, we must fire him today. No. But is it okay to fire him today? Sure. And I'm sure there's going to be about 5 people in that building tonight, and who knows, how they'll play or whatever. But, the fan base has spoken with its apathy, and I don't see the path for him to be back next year. So tonight, next week, after the season, I'm always like, what's the huge need? Unless something, like I said before, we've had this same topic. If it's toxic, if it's like unbearable for people, whoever that may be, then yeah, do it. Get it over with.
You think they would?
I don't think it really matters whether it's now or later. Do I think they would do it?
Tonight.
I mean, I'm trying to think of examples of like right after a game. I will say this: if it turns out to be true, that's a rough leak at Vanderbilt too. And I don't know the Door Report guys personally. I've seen them like fighting with Withrow on Twitter. That's like, I've seen that. But like if they got that, it's basically he's been toast, and then Vanderbilt's letting him coach tonight, and then ready to fire him. Woo, that's a tough league, man. That is a tough league.
So here's what I would say. I think that the Door Report is trying to I guess they got accused of just being another podcast the other day. They got really mad about that. I mean, everybody does have a podcast, but some podcasts actually matter and some don't. And so what I would say is if the Door Report wants to be legitimized, if Jerry Stackhouse gets fired after the game tonight, they will be halfway there to being legitimized. The other halfway they've got to go is apparently they challenged Withrow to come on the show, and Withrow said he would come on the show, and now they won't put Withrow on the show. So you guys got to suck it up and put Withrow on the show. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is you got to be right about this Jerry Stackhouse getting fired tonight thing, because I don't think it's true. Because I think Vanderbilt is going to ride this out till the end of the year, and then they're going to fire him. I think they should fire him. They should have fired him on Sunday after the women's game. They should have announced at 4 o'clock on Sunday that they're firing Jerry Stackhouse. There's no reason for him to still be here. They are bleeding fan support. And what's crazy is that there are a lot of diehard fans who are scared to death that Vanderbilt's going to bring him back. And normally I don't think like scratching the itch just to scratch the itch is a good idea. But I think in this case, there's nothing to be gained by keeping him. So you might as well make your fan base, or at least what's left of it, happy for 5 minutes by firing the guy. That's what I think should happen, but I don't think it's going to happen.
So I just want to make, because I haven't heard this, you're sure they said this is happening, not we're hearing or this could happen. Like they said, this is happening.
I mean, they've alluded to it. I don't listen to the Door Report, so I couldn't tell you. I'm sure that, they didn't exactly come out and say, Jerry's getting fired, but they're gossiping pretty hard about it.
Because that's the thing. Like, to your point about legitimacy, I agree if they said it clearly and said, we are reporting this, then you're putting yourself out there. So, it's one way or the other, and it's going to hurt or help you. But this is where the game of telephone, and this is where I count on you, Jared, a professional communicator, to be able to communicate something clearly.
Again, I think that to me, they were signaling more than just, I think they should. I mean, I think it was the way, like, if I say, like, word on the street, that's where I'm like, that's kind of what they're doing. And so if they want to be legitimate, they need to be right about this. All right, more Jared versus Joe continues next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Caroline?
All right, Jared, you go first in this one. So Will Levis was ranked on FanDuel's way too early 2024 quarterback rankings 32nd behind J.J. McCarthy.
It's a hot take.
And quarterbacks who haven't even drafted yet. It's a steaming hot take. But here's my conspiracy. Do you think that could be a way for FanDuel to drum up interest for bets on the Titans taking a quarterback with the 7th overall pick?
No. What I think that is I think FanDuel and all these or all the DraftKings and all these gambling websites is what they're trying to do is they're trying to get so many people to pay attention to them. And I think they knew that by putting Caleb Williams ahead of Aaron Rodgers, they were going to get people to pay attention to them. I don't think that they're trying to get the attention of people with Will Levis, though, because I don't think that does, outside of this city, get anybody's attention. And I saw that CBS redid their 2023 NFL draft the other day, and I don't know who at CBS did it, but somebody did. And they had Will Levis going number 2 overall to the Texans with C.J. Stroud going number 1. So I take Will Levis at number 2 overall and Will Levis number 32 in terms of quarterback rankings, and I think, you know what? The reality with Levis is nobody knows. He's got the potential. He's got the talent. He's got the size and the arm and all of that. But, 3 years from now, is Will Levis signing a franchise quarterback contract? I don't know. And I think anybody who tells you anything more than that, they're lying to you. I don't think Brian Callahan knows. I don't think Amy Adams Strunk knows. I don't think Joe Rexrode knows. I don't think anybody knows. So I think that's kind of my takeaway from this with Levis is I just think that the entire country has no idea what he is or isn't.
But does the entire country know what J.J. McCarthy is?
No. But he's right there with Levis.
Yeah, and he's never played it down in the NFL.
Exactly. Levis has had success in the NFL. I don't even like McCarthy. I mean, we'll see. We'll see with them. I saw it. It's funny because I put this as the first topic on our show tomorrow, so we're ruining it. Tell me your theory there again, Caroline.
I think it's just my theory is, and I don't know if I fully believe in this. This is more so just trying to find some justification for this bullcrap list. It's trying to drum up some sort of interest for the betting markets.
Let me tell you something. If Jared immediately says no to your conspiracy theory, woo, you got a conspiracy theory.
Oh, Jared is the end-all, be-all of what is acceptable to think as a theory and what's not?
I think that if Jared thinks it's not a conspiracy theory, then you know it's not a conspiracy theory because you know I'll go down the rabbit hole. Joe.
Well, because
the end-all, be-all of terrible conspiracy theories.
Look, I'm just saying, it's a FanDuel account. I don't believe in it. I'm trying to come up with some sort of justification as to why you would put Caleb Williams above Jared Goff.
I have a bone to pick.
Is it possible?
What?
Hold on. Is it possible J.J. McCarthy was on the plane from Green Bay or was on the Titans Christmas card or joined Stretch as the Super Titan or whatever the hell that was? Could it be that? There's 3 of your greatest hits, Jared.
That was really, really insightful and funny. So here's the bone that I have to pick. So
it's your fault.
The Caroline, Willie, and D. Mace program today went all through these quarterbacks, and they were like, okay, would you have this guy or this guy? And the 3 of them decided, okay, Justin Fields or Will Levis. And the 3 of you took Justin Fields over Will Levis.
No, we didn't.
No, yes, you did. All 3 of you took Fields.
Oh, no, we didn't, Jared. We took Levis.
No, you all took Fields. I heard it. And I immediately texted Porth, and I was like, all 3 of them just took Justin Fields over Will Levis. And Porth texted me back and said, Fields can't read a defense.
If they took Fields, I know I did not.
I heard it.
So
and
let me
I
jump
said
in on
it.
that. Let me jump in on that. So let me ask you this way, Jared. If you had to bet right now, that at the end of their careers, who will have a more successful career, Justin Fields or Will Levis? Who are you betting on?
Levis.
Okay. See, I would bet on Fields just
oh
because he's
my
already
God!
done. Quiet yourself down for a minute. Now, if the question is who are you taking right now, I'm taking Levis because there's so much we don't know, like you just laid out. I don't know. I've seen Fields enough. He's going to be in the league for 10 years, and he's going to put up some good numbers, and he'll be pretty good, right? Like, I mean, he already has a huge head start on that. Like, Levis could be out of the league in 2 years. So I would, if I had to bet money on who was going to end up, I mean, if I'm betting money, I'm betting on neither of them to make it, like, because most of these guys don't. If I'm taking one of them, taking them now, yeah, I'm going to take more of the unknown because I have no idea. Levis could also be a star in a year.
I think Fields kind of sucks.
Fields, there's a ceiling there.
I think Fields sucks. I think Tua sucks. I think Deshaun Watson sucks now.
We didn't ask for everybody you think sucks.
Hold on. I think Geno Smith kind of sucks. Other than that, that's it. I don't even think Derek Carr sucks.
Derek Carr sucks.
I think Derek Carr kind of sucks, but I wouldn't say he sucks. I mean, I would rather have Derek Carr than Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson sucks. What's next, Caroline?
I think he's just a bad person.
And sucks.
All right, Ian, hit it.
Brennan ties it up in the corner. Predators win. Predators 5, Golden Knights 3. And we're 2-0 to start the road trip with a big win in fabulous Las Vegas.
That was Max Hers. By the way, we love.
We do.
And he's great, and he's going to have a long career in play-by-play.
He is.
But, Max, in this long career in play-by-play, don't ever say we again. I beg of you, okay? I beg of you to not do this.
And why
you
is
did
that?
Not do, you did not do anything. You called the game, which is great. It's an important part of the process. You did nothing. You did not take a shift. You did not coach the team. You did not pick the players. You did not do the equipment. What else? Who else could say we? Who's allowed to say we?
You don't own the team?
Okay, there you go. You don't own the team. I mean, look, like fans say we, and that's fine. You are calling the games. You are not we.
There's really no question here. I just need Joe to justify that take.
You got a problem with that take?
I
is this really the hill that you're going to die on? He works for the team.
The hill of death is we's a good idea for a play-by-play. So if that's
I think we's totally fine.
Give me the loss. I'll take the loss right now.
Why is we not okay for the team guy? Why is it not okay?
Freaking hate it. That's why.
Okay, but that's not a good reason.
Because they're not doing anything. There's still a level of separation, in my opinion, with the broadcast team or anybody in media covering a team, including – so Jim Wyatt works for the Titans. What would you think of Wyatt, who comes on our show sometimes and says, yeah, we really need to do well in free agency. We got to get some guys in the draft too. We really got to fix that offensive line.
He wears team
with that or no?
gear.
Answer my question. Would you have a problem with that or no?
No, because I love Jim Wyatt. I do, and I have a newfound respect for Jim Wyatt. But Jim Wyatt works for the team. Like, he is up and honest about it. And
he would never – right.
Just because he wouldn't do it doesn't mean that it's not okay for him to do if somebody else in a similar position wanted him to do it. If the Predators win the Stanley Cup, Max is going to get a ring, and Max deserves to get a ring if the Predators win the Stanley Cup. Max is on the team. Max flies on the plane.
Really?
He stays in the hotel. He's as much on the team as the equipment guys are on the team. He's on the team.
No. He is a broadcaster.
What's the difference between him? What's the difference between him and Sean Henry? Sean Henry's not on any of these shifts.
He freaking runs the entire business. Are you kidding me? What's the difference between a play-by-play announcer and the guy who runs the entire business?
He didn't score.
This is your stupid question?
He didn't score last night, did he? No. Neither did the team doctor. Neither did the team grocer. Neither did the team. Neither did partner. And if partner wants to say we, partner can say we because he's part of the team.
But, Jared, all those people you mentioned play a part in success or failure. Someone communicating the game to fans plays zero part in success or failure. Zero. Everybody else you mentioned has a role and is employed to do something to help the team succeed. The broadcaster does not. The broadcaster speaks into a microphone and tells people about the freaking game.
Okay, what about Team PR?
Ridiculous take.
What about Team PR? Are they on the team?
Huh? You don't think that Team PR plays?
No. I'm asking you. Is Team PR on the team?
Absolutely. Anything that happens.
So Team PR, because again, you say that it doesn't matter that the broadcaster talking to the fans doesn't have anything to do with the team. The PR element of it, again, is for that message to get to the fans. And you're saying they're on the team, but the broadcasters aren't.
Because if I'm listening to a game or a broadcaster of a team that I want, if something bad happens, I'd like the broadcaster to tell me. And if the other team does something, the broadcaster should tell you that too and tell you the square up, straight, black and white truth of what happened.
But you know that's not what happens.
PR people do that, Jared? Do PR people do that, Jared, or no?
Have you listened to any other team broadcast in America? Have you listened to the Titans games
Freaking idiot.
on the radio?
Yes.
I mean,
Well,
every decision the Titans
like
makes a great decision on the radio.
Oh, Baghdad radio?
Yes.
Ignore that touchdown.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yes, it
That
is.
says so much about you.
They're
That says
on
so
the
much
team.
about you.
You got a problem? Hey, do you have a problem with
Unbelievable.
Hawk Harrelson?
Yes. Holy crap.
Oh, I love
No
Hawk
way.
Harrelson. He gone.
Perfect. This is perfect.
Caroline, who wins this
Absolute
week?
worst announcer ever.
Who wins
It's
this
just
week?
also, I think, a massive difference between saying, yay, we scored a touchdown, and we're 2-0 to start this road trip.
So where would you put, and Hawk Harrelson's probably a little bit before your time, Caroline, but where would you put the guy who, when the White Sox hit a home run, goes, hey, you can put it on the board, yes!
Where would I put that? What do you mean?
Like, would you accept that?
Well, of course, it's the team broadcast.
I love Hawk Harrelson. Like,
It's
I
fun.
love that. I love the Hawk Harrelson, and we go to the bottom of the fifth, and it's the good guys, 4-2. I love that. What's wrong with that, Joe?
I think that's
There's
fun.
nothing wrong with the good guys. There's nothing wrong with somewhat
The
homer.
good guys is more than we.
Listen to me. Listen to Willie Donick call a game. Listen to Pete Weber call a game. Listen to Mike Keith. On. It's okay to get excited with your voice, but when the other team scores, Willie and Pete also raise their voice and say that's a goal. That's what I want. Professional broadcasting. And again, Max is great at play-by-play. I just want the we out of it. You didn't do anything, buddy. There's still a line of separation there.
When the Predators win the cup and Max gets his ring, I will go up to Max and I will tell him, you earned this ring, and you deserve it, and you are an integral part of that team because he is. He's a part of that team. You mean to tell me that all those years that Barry Trotz was a young coach and Terry Crisp was calling the game and Terry Crisp was around and Barry could pick his brain, and you're telling me Terry Crisp had nothing to do with the on-ice success of the Nashville Predators?
In terms of his
That's
broadcasting, yes, he had nothing to do with it. If he was an advisor separate from that because he's a former coach, now you're totally changing the discussion.
I'm
As
just
a
saying,
broadcaster,
that
yes,
is
he had
different.
nothing to do with it.
He's a broadcaster. He's on the team. Caroline, who wins?
Joe, you cannot have a take like that today and win Jared versus Joe, so Jared wins today.
Yes.
Good. I love it. And the fact that you two are
You know
on
what?
this
We
loser
win.
show, I'm going to
We
set fire
won
to it.
today.
I'm gonna pour gasoline on it. What a joke. What a joke. I
Hey,
am
that's
glad. I
three
don't
of the
think
last
we're gonna win
four,
again.
Joe. That's three of the last four on Jared versus
You
Joe.
don't want to count.
And
wanna
you know,
count, man.
hey, this is
You
how I'm
don't
going
wanna
to end it
tally.
for you, Joe. Three of the last four, and you can put it on the board. Yes. Goodbye, Joe. We'll react. Stillman.
Brennan ties it up in the corner. Predators win. Predators 5, Golden Knights 3. And we're 2-0 to start the road trip with a big win in fabulous Las Vegas.
Max, in this long career in play-by-play, don't ever say we again. I beg of you, okay? I beg of you to not do this.
And why
you
is
did
that,
not do You did not do anything. You called the game, which is great. It's an important part of the process. You did nothing. You did not take a shift. You did not coach the team. You did not pick the players. You did not do the equipment. What else? Who else could say we? Who's allowed to say we?
You don't own the team?
Okay, there you go. You don't own the team.
Let's welcome in Sean Henry of the Nashville Predators.
Oh,
Sean Henry, your thoughts on
Rex
Max
Hers?
Blasting Max Hers.
Hey, Joe, are you on your porch yelling at the grass and the clouds? You're a professional writer. You should know what a pronoun is. Max is we. Come on, man. The greatest announcers ever recognize when they're not calling national games, they work for the team. It is we.
So Dre texts in, our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and says that Jared versus Joe was so freaking good. It was one of the best Jared versus Joes yet. Let me just say this. I am not a fan of homer takes. I am not a fan of people sugarcoating the truth. I am not a fan at all of just like telling me things happened that didn't happen, right? Like, again, and I love them both. I do. I love Mike Keith and I love Dave McGinnis. I love them. I think they're great. But when they're sitting there yucking it up with Rand Carthon about why it was a good thing that he didn't go to the Senior Bowl, I'm like, okay, guys, you're laying it on a little thick here. But again, it's a team broadcast. Like, that's the point. It's a team broadcast. And I believe the team broadcasters are a part of the team, right? And I go back to when I was a kid and I watched the Atlanta Braves every night on TBS. And they had 4 announcers when I was a kid: Skip Carey, Pete Van Wieren, Don Sutton, and Joe Simpson. And those guys every night brought Braves baseball to me and millions of others around America. You don't think that had an impact on the team? All the fans that showed up there, Skip Carey and Pete Van Wieren and Don Sutton and Joe Simpson, those were the guys that brought the game to the fans. And the fans matter. Like, so I'm sorry, but a team broadcaster travels with the team, is paid by the team, eats with the team, rides to the hotel with the team, stays in the hotel with the team, all of those things. It's like I said the other day. Like I said the other day that I went with the Predators this weekend to St. Louis, right? And Ian, did I not say this on Monday? Because when they changed the travel plans, like, even though, like, again, I don't think that was something they were broadcasting to the entire world. But when you change the travel plans, people that are traveling usually catch wind of what the travel plans are. And so when I found out that, we're flying back to St. Louis and the team wasn't going on to Vegas, I mean, I wasn't going to come on the air on Monday and say, hey, Barry Trotz decided not to spend a couple extra days in Vegas. Because when I was with the team, I was part of the team for that day. But I'm not part of the team. Now, again, I'm not in Vegas right now or LA or wherever they're headed to next, or I'm not any of that. And so I don't say we on the air. And you guys know I love the Predators and you know I love the Titans. But I think if I worked for those teams, I think I would say we. I don't know. But again, I stand with Max Hers on this one. Max, you're doing a great job. Keep doing your thing. Stillman and Company. Now about the actual hockey game. We'll get into that. Twice daily. I absolutely love Twice Daily, and you will too. I was at Twice Daily yesterday, by the way. I go to Twice Daily pretty much every day, and so it's not hard for me to tell you that I'm at Twice Daily. Twice Daily has your chance to win a dream trip to Italy, so it's very easy. All you have to do is join the Twice Daily Rewards program and purchase a made-to-order Italian sub, and you'll be entered in the Twice Daily sweepstakes to win an Italian trip of a lifetime. Every sub purchase is a chance to win, or place an Italian sub mobile order for double entries. Visit Twice Daily today for the chance to win a dream trip to experience the breathtaking beauty and rich history of Italy. Again, that's twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more info. Download the Twice Daily app. Save money with all of your visits. It's wonderful. I got a French toast bagel the other day because I wanted to try it. I saw it in the little menu. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it. And I did. And it was fabulous. Twice Daily, fresh all day.
O'Reilly, good stick. Nyquist, a second chance at a clear. He goes for the empty net and nails it. Gus Nyquist makes it 5-3 Preds. An empty netter with 1:49 to go.
I felt great about our game. Even at the end, obviously we unfortunately put ourselves in a tougher position than I thought. The way we played, the way we dictated the game, that get in that position wasn't probably ideal. But I thought it was a real solid 60-minute effort. I thought we did a lot of really good things.
Predators winners last night. They got a massive one tomorrow on the road at L.A. And they are 2 points out of it, or I guess they're technically tied with St. Louis for the last wild card spot, but St. Louis has a game in hand. And it should be noted, according to MoneyPuck.com, the Predators currently have a 42.9% chance of making the playoffs. That is not a strong chance. Now, let me say this about last night's game. I thought the Predators were awesome. I thought that they outskated Vegas. I thought that they were tougher than Vegas. I thought that they were better in net than Vegas, and that was Kevin Lankinen, who I thought was freaking fabulous last night. At the end of the game, they really battened down the hatches. Gus Nyquist, was that a backhand, by the way, Ian?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't think you could send it 80 feet up the ice.
I mean, technically you could, but he did have some bodies around him. It would be tougher.
It would have been tough. But again, I thought that was an empty netter that was like a difficult empty netter that they had to have. And so I thought everything about last night's game was great. Just like I thought that everything about Saturday night's game was great. And I love the secondary scoring, right? Smith, Novak, Evangelista, Glass, all scoring last night. Not Forsberg and O'Reilly all the time. But I'm not sure that I'm ready to kind of change my mind about where the Predators are headed to the deadline. Because, again, they still only have a 42% chance of making it to the playoffs. And so I feel like they should be sellers. I think that it's sellers with an asterisk, right? Because I want them to sell the UFA defensemen. Fabro, Carrier, those kind of guys. Like, I want them to be sold because I think they've got defensemen at Milwaukee and Stasny and Delgazzo and Livingstone and those guys that I would say, are ready for the NHL. And next year they're going to want Mullendijk on there. And they're still rebuilding, and they still could use more picks in terms of if they want to make a trade for somebody, if they want to add something, next year or in the offseason or prospects or whatever. So it was exciting. It was good. It shows that they have gotten the message about what happened last week at home, where Barry Trotz says, hey, here's our standard. You're not meeting our standard, so we're going to cancel the Vegas trip. They clearly got the message, especially the young guys who I think that message was for. I don't think they need to tell Philip Forsberg how to be a pro. But it still doesn't change my overall outlook of the season. The way I'm looking at the season right now is, and it is kind of a moving goalpost, right? Like, you got to win tomorrow. It's a massive one against the Kings because the Kings are starting to pull away from that first wild card spot. But after you beat the Kings, then you got terrible San Jose, terrible Anaheim. Got to beat them both. Then you come home, and you can't do this thing where you're really good on the road and you're terrible at home. So the Predators need to get on a heater here. And then they could possibly feel comfortable about padding points so that when they get into the, really the home stretch here of the playoffs, that they feel like they've got a fighting chance and that they're not pushing against it every night. But I still think, even though last night's win was good, even though I still think they're in a positive spot, I really like the last two games, I still don't think that it kind of changes my outlook as to where they're headed. Preds Insiders coming up next. They've got the whole breakdown of last night, the deadline, everything that's coming. Preds Insiders, they'll get you taken care of. Stillman and Company. We'll see you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.